Okay, today we're going to be graphing cosine again. I'm going to show you, it's not really a different way, it's the same, it might make our graphs a little bit prettier. Our amplitude is 5, and our period is 2 pi over b, which in this case b is 3. We know that our amplitude is 5. Okay, so since we have 3 cycles, we know that we're going to have 3 cycles. We know we divide each cycle into 4 equal parts. So if we go ahead and label this, if we have 3 cycles and we're dividing the 3 cycles into 4 different parts, then that means we're going to have 3 times 4, which is 12 separate increments. So I need to divide this into 12 equal sections. So that would be, could divide it into thirds. Okay, and then we're going to divide each of these into 4 sections. 1, 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we know we always end at 2 pi. Now, to find out what our scale is or what we're going to be counting by, we can take our period, which is 2 pi over 3, and divide that by 4, and that gives us 2 pi over 3 times the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. That would be 2 pi over 12, which is just pi over 6. So that means that this is pi over 6. This would be 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. 3 pi over 6, which is pi halves. 4 pi over 6, which is 2 pi over 3. 5 pi over 6. 6 pi over 6, which is just pi. 7 pi over 6. 8 pi over 6, which is 4 pi over 3. 9 pi over 6, which is 3 pi over 2. 10 pi over 6, which is 5 pi over 3. And 11 pi over 6, okay? Since this is cosine, we're going to be starting on our y-axis. Sine starts at the origin, cosine starts on the y-axis. Since it's negative, we're going to start down here. So we'd go bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom. And our graph, just connecting the dots, is going to look like this. So really this isn't any different of how we've graphed sine or cosine. We just went ahead and labeled the axis first, which helped us have kind of a prettier graph and let us kind of know where things are going. Okay, the next problem we can do is we can do number... For homework, I gave you 7, 10, and 11. So we could do number 12. On number 12, the amplitude is 2.5. So this is 2.5. This is negative 2.5. And our period is 2 pi over b. Here b is 1, so 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi. And to determine how many sections we're going to divide this up in, we have to see how many cycles we have. Well, b is 1, so we only have 1 cycle, which means we only have to divide this up into 4 sections. And to determine what each one of those 4 sections, like to determine this distance here, we would take our period, which is 2 pi, and divide that by 4, which gives us pi halves. So this is pi halves. This would be 2 pi halves, which is pi, 3 pi halves, and this is 2 pi. Cosine again starts on the x-axis, and since it's positive, we're going to start here. 1, middle, down, middle, up. And by connecting the dots, you can see that we just have 1 cycle there. On number 14, the amplitude here is 3. This would be negative 3. And we're only talking about a fourth a cycle. So if this is 1 cycle, that would just be half a cycle. So we're just looking here. And our period is 2 pi over b. So 2 pi divided by 1/4 is really 2 pi times 4, which is 8 pi. So that means it would take us a whole 8 pi to get there. But remember, we're only graphing from 0 to 2 pi. So all we would have to graph is just that 1/4 of it. Okay, let's look at number 17. I'm going to move this up a little bit. If I can. Actually, yeah. Okay, on 17, remember that these are in the form y equals a times the cosine of b theta. And so that would be y equals 2 times the cosine of, now we have to find b. To find b, just like with sine, this is equal to, this is the period. And remember, the period is equal to 2 pi over b. So we set it equal to 2 pi over b, and then we can cross multiply here, and that gives us 2 pi b is equal to 6 pi. If we divide both sides by 2 pi, we'll get b equals 3. So our answer is y is equal to 2 cosine of 3 theta. Okay, over here, 2 pi, again, we'll set it equal to 2 pi over b. And we can see that b is 1, or we can cross multiply, putting a 1 under the 2 pi. That gives us 2 pi b is equal to 2 pi. And then if we divide both sides by 2 pi, we get b is equal to 1. So our equation for number 18 is y is equal to 4 times the cosine of 1 theta, or you could just write theta. On number 19, we'll set pi over 10 equal to 2 pi over b. And that would give us 20 pi is equal to pi b. And then if we divide both sides by pi, we'll get b equals 20. So the equation for number 19 is y is equal to a times, and here a is -1, so y equals -1 times the cosine of 20 theta. And for those of you that feel like you're getting this pretty good, you can, go ahead and work on your homework. Your homework for tonight is going to be (9), (15), and (16). Okay, your homework for tonight is 9, 15, and 16. I'm going to go ahead and work out 17 with those of you who feel like you just need an extra problem really fast. On 17, our amplitude is 1, and our period is 2 pi over b. And here our b is 2, so your period is just pi. So we'll start off with our amplitude, 1 here, -1 here. And since we're having 2 cycles, and remember we divide each cycle into 4 parts, so that's 4 times 2, so 2 cycles, 4 parts apiece, that's 8 parts. So we're going to have to divide this up into 8 equal parts, so that would be 2. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. Now to determine how much each of these parts are, we're going to have to take our period and divide that by 4. So that means we're going to start here with pi over 4. This is 2 pi over 4, which is pi halves. 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4, which is pi. 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4, which is 3 pi over 2. 7 pi over 4. And 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi. Next thing we're going to do is, since it's negative, we're starting at the bottom. So bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom. And then we can just sketch this graph. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to learn about tangent graphs. They don't take very long, so please let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget your quizzes on Wednesday.